Earlier this year in spring, I spent 5 weekends combing the woods for morel mushrooms. There are countless morel hunting tips scattered across the internet and in foraging guidebooks, so I decided to put the most common ones to the test. I searched through dense spring growth and came across countless other forest finds, but the one thing that I was truly after remained hidden until the fifth trip. Follow me as I try to prove or disprove these theories and discover what truly works. So let's rewind the story all the way back to early spring when it all began. Well, this weekend I'm going to a local forest where I heard that these mushrooms were found last year. It's the first time I'm trying to find this specific type of mushroom, so I don't have much of an idea where it grows, what the habitat looks like, what types of trees they prefer, if any. It's early spring, the right season for morels, so I'm hopeful we're going to find some. What could go wrong? Well, first of all, it might be a bit too early. The trees still look dormant, although there is some new growth on the forest floor. Early enthusiasm might just be the first mistake in our search for morels. But I have to say that this site is something I haven't seen in a while. Apart from the typical mature trees that make up the forests of the area, there's a dense shrubbery that looks like it's been taken over by some vine of sorts. It does look like a good deciduous mix of trees for morel preferences though. And if you're wondering if a human can swing on those vines, well, the answer is no. We had that tested by our smallest group member and it didn't hold. Sadly, I didn't catch that on camera. While it doesn't look too promising, since we're here, let's just take a walk and have a closer look at any clues this area might give. Maybe we'll find some morels while we're at it. This one is a typical find for this time of the year, and its full bloom is known to coincide with morel season. This is our first good indicator. It's commonly known as the dog-tooth violet, as the Latin name also suggests. This variety is native to European woodlands, but other related and very similar looking plants are found in North America, like the fawn or trout lilies. Each individual plant produces one flower with curled back petals and 2 leaves, which are spotted with brown speckles. As is the case with many of the early spring flowering plants, this one also has a bulbous root and is a perennial, which means it lives for more than 2 years. It prefers growing in shaded areas with slightly damp and loose soil, like the forest floor here, which coincidentally is also what morels prefer. In this case, moisture is kept within the soil by the carpet of leaves that fell last autumn. Here's another really cool looking one in my opinion, the 2-leaf squill, also a native that refuses to grow more than a pair of leaves per plant. You might be more familiar with the squill because it's often used in flower beds and cultivated ornamentally, especially in the UK. It tends to spread easily, which is why it's so popular in gardening. Although it doesn't look like it, the squill is related to the asparagus family. The whole forest floor looks the same, so I'm quite confident that all the flowering plants that I can see just here around me are the same ones I'm going to find on a longer walk further into the forest. Unfortunately, no luck finding any morels, or any other mushroom for that matter, so I'll have to call it a day and come back again later. I'm back to the same spot, and at a quick glance, it doesn't look too different from last week. There are some brackets growing at the base of a tree, but these have surely been here last week as well, we just didn't happen to see them. Some of the morel-associated flowering plants from last time are still holding strong, with a few new and timid additions to the undergrowth. Walking along the pathway, we notice a bold reddish spot popping from under the leaves. This is the Scarlet elfcup, one of the earliest mushrooms to emerge in spring. It grows on decaying hardwood branches and twigs, often poking through the leaf litter, just like this one. Now, while they aren't considered a gourmet culinary mushroom like the morel, some even find their texture to be a bit rubbery, they are edible and certainly add a nice splash of color to a foraging basket. More importantly, for many seasoned morel hunters, seeing these vibrant cups is a fantastic sign that morels might not be too far behind. They indicate that the forest floor is starting to wake up, the ground is warming, and conditions are becoming just right for morels to fruit. With this in mind, we head home somewhat frustrated, but confident we now had enough proof that the habitat is the right one. And so we gave this familiar patch of woods another shot. Although it's only been 1 week since our last visit, this time in, there's a lot more green in the forest. This means that the soil has started warming up, which is a good sign if we're to find any morels. I've been reading more on this, and there's a general consensus that morels need the soil to be around 10 degrees Celsius at a depth of about 10 centimeters, and also need some rainfall, which we've been having, so there's more good signs. The change in temperature seems to have been beneficial for some new plants to sprout, like this one, which is lesser celandine, a member of the buttercup family. As with all buttercups, it contains a toxin that irritates the skin and can be quite dangerous if ingested raw, causing dizziness, vomiting, or spasms. However, the leaves can be picked for soups or stir-fries because drying or cooking breaks down the toxin, so this plant can be consumed with a bit of caution. Locally, it's foraged before it blooms, as it apparently contains less toxin at that stage. So that's an extra safety measure if you're ever curious about cooking lesser celandine. And it's also quite difficult to mistake it for anything else. Plus, it grows like an invasive weed. It forms carpets that cover the ground, even here in Europe where it's a native plant. So it's definitely not hard to pick a bagful wherever you happen to find it. Walking further into the forest, we come across some scarlet elf cups again. Some in plain sight, some hidden, but clearly more of them than last time, which is a good sign. After a few hours of searching with no finds though, we decide to try our luck in the shrubberies outside of the forest, where to our surprise, we find a morel. A false morel though, snugly hidden in the leaf litter. This one is commonly known as a verpa, a wrinkled thimble cap, if you can imagine that, or an early false morel, because it grows before true morels do. So in this respect, we have another clue that this area is a good spot for morels. While not a mushroom that grows in clusters, verpas do grow in small groups, usually with individual fruiting bodies spread around a relatively small area. So just a few minutes after, we find some more. Verpas can be identified by their brain-like cap with wrinkles and folds, which is unlike the more honeycomb-shaped caps of true morels. But the appearance of the cap alone is not the only distinguishing feature. A more relevant one can be seen once you cut a verpa lengthwise. The inside of the stem is loosely fitted with a cotton-like tissue, unlike true morels, which are hollow. The stem is also attached to the top of the cap, not the base or the middle, as is the case with true morels. The edibility of the verpa mushroom is still up for debate, as it has been reported to cause gastrointestinal upset in certain individuals. Most foragers consider that verpas are edible only if thoroughly cooked for at least 20 minutes. And also, you should never eat a large quantity when trying them for the first time, just to make sure you're not allergic. With all these precautions in mind, we take a bunch home to eat for the very first time, and make sure to boil them for 30 minutes, just to be on the safe side. We prepare them by simply tossing the boiled verpas in some flour, and then fry them in butter until they are golden brown. We split the small portion between 4 people, and I'm happy to report none of us had any issues. So, yay to more mushroom species to pick. But we're not ready to give up on the tricky true morels just yet. Another week into the spring morel search, and we're back to the same spot, this time pumped up with confidence after all those telling clues. In the meantime, the blackthorns and cherry plum trees have had a chance to bloom, so we have a very scenic walk ahead of us today. We search at the edge of the forest, with no luck. And in the pasture, with no luck. And within the forest, sadly, with no luck. The usual suspects are still here, although not as many as we had stumbled upon last time. This is getting repetitive, but there's additional telltale signs. Spring flowering plants that we haven't found before, which are also associated with the right time for morels, namely cowslip on the left side and lungwort on the right, growing neatly together to perfectly hint to all that which we have not yet found. Cowslip was traditionally foraged in Spain and England as an early spring green, tossed in salads and used to flavor wines and vinegars, while lungwort was used as a medicinal herb to treat illnesses that affect the lungs. Pulmonaria, pulmonary. Pretty cool, pretty straightforward naming. But it's time to call it a day. Perhaps unwilling to accept defeat, we soon conclude that the temperature is not right yet for morels to develop. So the group decides to skip the next weekend until it gets a bit warmer. Yeah, we actually got lazy and skipped the next 3 weekends. Maybe this is what we should have done all along, because today is a Wednesday, and lo and behold, hidden in the shrubbery of a northeast-facing slope, not a southern one, as the books recommend, we have just found a specimen that is classified under the true morels group, our very first half-free morel. With newfound energy and enthusiasm, we go search for more in the forest as well. Morels are often a host for fungus gnats to breed. So, having stumbled upon an area where these little flies just wouldn't leave us be, we think to put this theory to the test, and there it is. Another morel. A really fresh-looking one, which had trapped a leaf hat while growing, so it was hard to spot at first. Apparently, you're supposed to hold one in your hand as a reference while looking for others, because they're so well camouflaged that you could easily miss them and walk straight by. Or so the saying goes. Of course, you'd have to find one first, but we don't have that problem anymore. Some of the others that we find seem to have very long stems, which means that these ones are more mature than we initially thought. The long stems are white, and being taller and contrasting the leaves and new growth makes them a bit easier to spot. What we notice is that it also helps if you walk on a slight slope, searching for them uphill. This will make the white stem stand out rather than you looking for them directly from above, where you'll see more of the cap, which is very well hidden. The brown color of their caps is quite similar to the dead leaves from the environment, so they're not easily visible from above. You can positively ID a true morel by its hollow stem and honeycomb-like cap structure. At first, the difference between a true morel and a verpa is subtle, but if you were to put them side by side, the first noticeable thing is that the caps are not that similar. Verpa caps are more rounded, bell-shaped light brown, whereas the half-free morels are more pointy and darker. Verpa caps have wrinkles and veins resembling a small brain, while morels have better defined ridges and holes. Additionally, the stem of a verpa is attached to the top of the cap, whereas the stem of the morel is attached to the base. And unlike the fluffy cottony stuff from inside a verpa stem, a clear sign that you've picked a true morel is that the inside of the mushroom will be absolutely hollow. Like the woodland edition of a bag of chips, it's more air than mushroom, so you'll need to pick quite a few for a consistent meal, which is exactly what we're about to prepare here. This one will include a bit of oil, spring onion, garlic, parsley, cooking cream, the highly prized morel mushrooms, and a small amount of high alcohol spirit of your choice to flambe it all. We're going to be using cognac on these ones. And of course, salt and pepper to taste. Having sliced the ingredients, we will begin by lightly sautéing the spring onion in a dab of oil for a few minutes. Then we'll add the chopped morels and mix them in so that they can release their moisture and begin to cook. Remember, these mushrooms also require about 20 minutes of cooking at high heat, so don't try to eat them raw or undercooked. Toss the garlic in later on so it doesn't burn and ruin the mix. We added the garlic after the morels cooked for about 8 minutes. After the ingredients have reduced in size, the braver one of us takes on the role of flambe chef. We're good. No one got burned, no animals were hurt, and no property was destroyed. Once the flame subsides, we add the cooking cream and mix it in. And while this is nicely bubbling, we chop the parsley and throw it in the mixture along with the salt and pepper. This turned out to be an interesting mix of tastes. Definitely a higher quality dish than a typical mushroom sauce. It's been an eye-opening experience to gather the information of how to find morels and then put it to the test, as there are so many unverified recommendations out there. But all in all, I can say that it was quite fun, and I now have a conclusive filtered list of clues that have proven to be true. I encourage you to put them to the test as well, and share your findings or disproven theories in the comments. And until next time, happy foraging! I'll see you again soon.